Got a bit of a water leak in the boot of my Lexus IS200, so today we're going to have a quick look around and see what we can find. So it's pretty common for these cars to leak. They're getting on a bit now, and if you'd have seen the first video, there's a couple of places I've already identified. So leaking down essentially from this plastic boss, which is pushed through from the other side to help hold the bumper on, and also there was a bit of leakage going on sort of underneath that vent. It was either leaking in through from around it, or if you look at the actual flap itself, it's quite old and tired now, and there's a bit of a gap there. So basically we're going to strip down the boot and then have a quick look around and see if we can find anything obvious. But there's obviously some marks from it running with water. I washed the car the other day. I noticed that when I was washing it, there was drips of water running down from this area here, in between from this panel to this panel, I think it was. And the old rust marks where the stuff was running was basically running sort of from that corner there and then filling this up. So the first thing you want to do is, if you look underneath, there'll be a black rubber grommet in the corner of these boot wells. So you have a quick look underneath. Be able to see that down here. So this black rubber piece here in the corner, if you pull that out, basically that'll allow any water that's in there to drain out. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Thankfully I've dried mine off and it's not wet in there anymore, but that's what we're going to do. So now we can strip the rest of the boot out and then start finding where things are coming from. So I've already taken out the boot tidy, the spare wheel and the carpet thing that goes across, and it's one side, but it's pretty easy to take off. Essentially you'll find there's some of these little plastic pegs. So on the back here, see these plastic pegs, and I've just got a screwdriver, and basically what I do is, if they're flat here, you can actually get a trim tool under them. So you should be able to get a trim tool under it and sort of lever them off. And this is the first panel you have to take off, so lever them out. Trust me, they're in there good. So that's that one out, and then this one above, because it's set in a recess, you can't really get a trim tool on it. So thankfully there's like a little T-slotty thing in the top of it, and I just carefully stick a screwdriver in and then pry it off. And that pulls them out. Obviously be careful not to scratch your trim. I mean, this thing's quite old and scratched anyway, so I'm not too bothered. But then that releases this first piece of plastic trim, because this wraps over the side bits that you need to get out. So I'll take this off and I'll show you when it's all stripped out. But essentially all you've got to do is follow around the panels, find all of those little push-in plastic pieces, and there's also some tie-down eyes, like some sort of lashing down points that are held in with some, I believe they're M6s with a 10mm hex. So you unscrew those, there's 4 of them, they come out, and then there was a piece of carpet across here as well, again, that's held in with those little plastic fir tree push pins. And I've taken that out so it doesn't get damp and go mouldy. And we'll go from there. But yeah, it's a pretty easy process. Then we can get the bumper off. So now we're all cleared out, and both of the rubber bungs are out of the bottom of the pockets, as you can see down the bottom there. Then we can start looking at taking the bumper off. So inside, if you look through these square sort of notches, there's a few threaded rods coming through with a nut on it. So it's a 10mm nut, and you need a long socket because it's quite a long thread that they're attached to. You're supposed to have 4 in there, but mine's only got 3, which is kind of typical of this car. But there we go. So we'll whip those off, and then once those are off, you then need to start working around your way into the arch. So unscrew this, take off a little boomerang thing, and then there's a few sort of bolts, 10mm hex, sort of self-tapper bolts that are screwed to a few of these. Once this comes off, it's pretty obvious, and there's a few bits and pieces underneath and stuff. Mine's lost a few because some of the plastics have cracked, and so this one doesn't even have one in the bottom corner. It's only really got one at the top here. So once you get this off, perhaps you have to take the plastic arch liner off as well. Depends on how good or access you can get to this stuff, but really it's not too difficult. So I'll start taking this off out here. Because access is limited, I've had to resort to a 1/4 inch ratchet, with a converter on it, and then a yeah, Phillips head or PZ bit in there to actually get the access in there without taking the wheels off, but we're doing it. There you go. And up in here, behind this area, there's a bolt holding this piece directly up into the wheel arch. So we've got to take off that inner arch now, and once that's off, we should be able to access the bolt to get the bumper off. Do that on both sides, and then we can get rid of the bumper. There's also some plastic push clips underneath, which you have to pull out, but again on this mine are already broken off, but there's a few plastic sort of push clips and stuff sort of in this area here under the car, so you'll need to take those off as well. So the bumper's all loose now, but the rear lights wrap over it. You can't pull the bumper out without taking these out, so it's quite simple. It's only 2 bolts here. You just undo those again. It's the 10mm, so and carefully we tip this forward, and it pops off with a couple of things. The bottom of it is kind of tucked in behind the bumper, so you have to sort of roll it towards yourself, so that pops out and then it rolls down that way. And if you look behind there, you can see all the electrical connectors you've got to disconnect. So it's a bit wet, so I'm going to dry mine off because I did wash it the other day. But yeah, then we can start to see all sorts of exciting places where water could leak in. So I'll just play with this for a second and dry this off with a tissue, I think, because I don't want to get all the bulbs and stuff wet. And yeah, that'll be that part out. So we're nearly there. Once you get both of the rear lights out, then the bumper can be released. Obviously it's held on with onto this little like ball jointy thing here, so you pop it here and that comes off, then you've got to undo this square clip here, and obviously that'll take the bumper off. So I'll get that stripped down and I'll pick you up in a sec. Progress. So that's all off. So I'll point out everything that can leak, and that's basically everything here. So we'll start at the top. There's a possibility you could end up with water leaking through these 2 holes. That's why the threads of the screws can feel a bit sort of gummy and sticky, because there should be some sort of thread sealer or seam sealant on there. Don't like put thread lock on it or anything, because that will really jam it in there and get it stuck. But mine wasn't leaking from there, but there's a possibility it could. Then we've got these, basically these little plastic cups. On the back of the lights there's a stick that locates, sort of locating peg that goes in there. So first of all, check there isn't a big hole right the way through, and if you look behind it there's like a black rubber, and that's supposed to be a seal, but you can see that over time they've dried. Mine have cracked in a few places. So on the inside of that you can see these pieces here. So these are the bits you want to be looking for. If you squeeze, there's some plastic tabs. Basically you have to squeeze top and bottom and on the sides of those plastic tabs, and then you can pop them out. So that's now out of there, obviously, and if you look at the back of it, that seal is absolutely knackered, so probably going to end up putting some mastic around that, clipping that back in. So that one's in there anyway. So that one, then moving around to the side, you've got this one. This is obviously the support or the location peg for the bumper, and again that has another rubber washer behind it to seal it. And this was the little ball joint thing I was telling you about, and if you look on the, you can see that there's water and stuff on there and it's pretty loose. And if you look on the inside, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but you can kind of see it shimmering, and there's definitely water going on there, and I know it's dripped from there before. Also the vents, they can let water in from all around, and also, like I said, through the flap, which seems to get stuck. So there's a few tabs, you just push them down and lift the bottom 2 up, then the whole vent comes out. And what I've already done is on the back side of this, there's a foam rubber sort of gasket seal, and when I took that out, I squirted some clear silicone around the outside of it, pushed it back in, so it sort of smushed its way out, and then all I did was wipe my finger around it like that. So I know that that one's sealed, but like I say, this crispy horrible thing could possibly be letting water in while you're driving, because I mean static, just washing it will go wherever there's a hole, but when you're driving obviously there's going to be like air and water and mist swirling around in between here, thrown up from the back wheels, which could be flapping this open. And this is really quite brittle, and I think the corner of it's slightly broken as well, so that's probably not helping. But at least I know that's not great, but I can leave that because I know it's not going to leak through here. So the other thing is, mine's had a couple of little biffs in the back of it, and the classic thing is, this is the rear panel, and obviously this is the rear quarter, and you can see all the seams and joins around it. And the other place to check basically is to make sure that none of the seams have split away or cracked, because these aren't too bad, but if you look here, there's clearly a crack and a split forming along this edge here where this has been biffed, and that's sort of peeled away. And that on the inside, if I follow that round to the inside, that's where the water was running in down below the sort of sheet of metal I could not remove, because that's this piece. So yeah, there's a crack there that I'm definitely going to have to fill up. So this side looks pretty obvious as to what's going on. You can also get cracks and splits going on here in the top corner, because this area here is just seam sealer, and that can split and crack there if you're not careful. And on this other side here, right at the very top, I think I've actually got a tiny little split going on. It's actually gone a little bit rusty, but, and this side's the same. So we can see again another crack and a split on that rubber. This one doesn't look too bad, but again, if they're loose, they're hardly going to be sealing, are they? So, and this one just twiddles and spins around, and you can see there's water and stuff being held behind it. So, already done this vent as well. That pops out. Again, put the sealant around it, push it back in, smear it around with your finger. You know that then the vent is sealed to the car, so the only thing left can be this rubber. And this rubber on this side is pretty flexible. The other side's all crispy and horrible. So, that one might have been replaced, because this one's white and the other one's black plastic. But it could also be left and right at the factory, we don't know yet. Anyway, so that's all of that. Again, check all the way around all of these seams. Be careful though, because they are pretty sharp. I've already cut myself twice trying to find stuff. Make sure there's no cracks behind this, I guess, in case the spot welds have been wrenched. But again, yeah, check around all the seams, make sure there's no cracks. So I'm going to do anything that clips in that's supposed to have a washer. I've already done the vent, and also going to do my obvious crack and split on that side. That should be everything that I need to do, hopefully. I'm also going to take these off, because these are the sort of bumper support lumps, I guess you'd call them, because they're not really a clamp or anything, but that's the lot foam liner for the bumper kind of thing. But these unbolt quite easily, and because obviously mine's had a biff on both ends, only a minor one, but still it's been biffed a couple of times. I'm going to take these off and make sure there's nothing weird going on underneath. I don't know if I'll be able to see anything, but with this on, I definitely don't know if there's anything under there. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you as I'm doing it. The other thing as well is obviously you've got the boot seal, so double check your boot seal. You can also peel the whole boot seal up, take it off and check, because underneath the bit that it clips onto might be rusty, because obviously there's like a metal fin going all the way around that might have rusted out and be leaking water in. And also these foil stickers are quite important, because they actually cover up a hole in the bodywork, so make sure that's not peeling off or missing or ripped up in any way. And yeah, I've taken off the bumper support lumps, I guess you'd call them. And yeah, this side looks okay. There's a little bit of a crack going on there, but I think that's just the paint. I might put a smear or something on there, I don't know yet. Give it a sand back perhaps and just see how far it goes, but that's that. And on this side we've got a similar thing. Obviously this area here, you can see there's a crack there and a crack there, and that's the other end of this steel chassis sort of crash support member. And obviously where this has been biffed, it's tried to sort of fold its way around it a little bit. But yeah, I'll check that out. Might just put a smear or something on there and just cover it up just in case. But I really don't think that's where the problem was this side. And if there was any leaks here, it would actually be more likely to go into the wheel well than it would in there. So yeah, that's all pretty good. Very glad that I found this split here, because this was the one I had no idea. When I looked at it on the inside, I had no idea where that was coming from. So happy that I found that. So yeah, we're going to seal the split between the two panels first. But just a tip, when you treat yourself to a new caulking gun, I like to buy the ones which have got this extra sort of lever mechanism in them. Usually you buy the ones with the sort of shorter handle, and that acts directly upon the rod that pushes the plunger up the tube of sealant. This one, it acts essentially like a little bit of a lever mechanism, so it reduces the amount of effort and it's a lot easier to squeeze. And trust me, they may be like twice the price or something. They're less than a tenner, but They may be a bit more expensive than the cheapest one you can find, but they are so much less aggro on the old wrists when you're actually trying to pump. Especially this sort of sealant is actually quite thick, and in the colder weather it can be quite a chore to actually sort of pump the handle. So yeah, if you can find one of these, I'd definitely recommend them over the cheapest ones, which just simply act this handle on the push rod itself. So that's what we're going to go with, this Tiger Seal adhesive and sealant in black. So I'm actually going to wedge mine open slightly with a screwdriver, so hopefully I can jam the nozzle in there and actually squirt some of the sealant down in between the two rather than just putting like a line over the top of it. But yeah. Now hopefully we just run a little bead across the top just to cover it up and smooth it in the best we can. Again, it's all behind the bumper, so it doesn't really matter, but try your best. There we go. That'll do it. So we'll start trying to tease this very fragile rubber washer off. So at the end of the day, this thing here, which is completely mashed to hell with loads of splits in it, is what's trying to stop water getting in from all of those plastic bits that are clipped onto the car. So stick some sealant on there. So I'm just using all-purpose sealant from Wix, silicone clear. I like clear because it matches any colour car, so you don't have to worry about that. Interior and exterior use, waterproof. So there we go. And a while back I treated myself to a pack of these special nozzles that have a screw-on cap. So when you're done with it, you don't have to find like a screw to shove in the end. You just sort of screw them on, and then essentially they stop the whole thing from setting on its own, and then that creeps then up into the tube, and then you throw half your tube away. I mean, sometimes the nozzle fills up solid, but it certainly helps save more than not using one. So let's grab the caulking gun. Silicone it is. So a fair amount of that on there, don't go nuts, but you need enough on there so it squidges out. And we go and push this in the car, I guess. That's fully seated. Obviously there's always going to be a bit of runoff around the side, so we'll smooth them off. And then just double check the inside that it's come through, and there's a bit in there as well. That's the basic principle of it. Remove, replace, squirt some stuff on it, push it back in, make sure it's sealed. We're going to go with that. So you don't need to see me do all of them. I am quite interested in taking this square one off because it does have a bolt on the inside. Pretty sure you just unscrew it and it comes out, but obviously this is a square peg, this one. So the one with the square peg, that obviously has a certain orientation it has to be in for the bumper to clip on, so that one needs to play with as well. So yeah, I'll carry on and do all of these, and I'll show you when I'm done. All done then. So clipped in, these are quite interesting, these little ones. They actually go in a square hole, and on the inside you undo the screw and pop the little black cap off, and then there's two sort of like diamond shaped corners to it, and you pinch them in and then the whole thing pops out. And when you clip it back in with the silicone on, those two little tabs sort of clip in, and when you put the screw back in, it actually pushes them out, and then they hook over the back of the panel again. So that's actually quite a nice little thing. Went around the inside as well and put a little bit on the inside just to make sure it's all covered and can't come back through. Even if the outside, like I say, isn't 100%, then the inside will cover that as well. So yeah, did all of those. All looking pretty good. So yeah, all sorted out now. And pulled off the seal Went around the edge of the seal, cleaned all the dirt out. This is full of grit and horrible mud and crap. Can't really see any splits or anything serious anywhere else, so I'm just going to leave it like that for the time being. And then when that's all done, I'll have another look, pour some water on it, and we'll do the water test basically. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll do the water test, I think, and see if we can find anything else. But yeah, not really that bad. Only took maybe an hour to strip the car down and an hour to do these things. Probably now to put it back together. So yeah, let them all dry off. I don't want to put the bumper back on while the sealant's still setting, because otherwise it could pull it at a funny angle and yeah, it won't dry properly. So yeah, I'll let that go. And by the time they're clipped in, they actually feel quite close to the panel. I mean, those old washers that were on it were actually sort of like a foam that over time has obviously been compressed, but they've basically just turned to hard rubber and perished. So yeah, not too bad. And like I say, you won't see any of this anyway, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like. But yeah, all good stuff, and hopefully that'll stop the water coming in.